And welcome back to the Power Accountability League. I'm your pal Danell. This is my channel. And do you think Jesus is related to Kal-El? I don't know the answer. Today's video is entitled Ebidenezer Scrooge. Let's spell it for you. Ebidenezer Scrooge. And yes, Joe Biden will be part of this video, as will Charles Dickens and as will Ebenezer Scrooge. My family has over a dozen different versions. Think about all the versions. This is a Charles Dickens novel called A Christmas Carol, and it's been made into movies, TV shows, radio. In fact, if you add up just in the USA alone, all the radio shows and TV shows and movies that have told the story of A Christmas Carol, it's got to be hundreds. And of course, that doesn't include Europe, hundreds more there, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. There has to be over 1,000 different versions of A Christmas Carol. Would you like to see my wife's favorite version of A Christmas Carol? Here it is. A Muppet Christmas Carol. Now, the jokes down below will go something like this. So his wife must be a teenager. My wife has a youthful spirit, but she's got the maturity of an adult, and I like that about her. In this version of A Christmas Carol, Michael Caine plays Ebenezer Scrooge. And the reason, now, before we go any further, what do I have to have for my throat? Drink of water. Hold on. There's a picture of Ebenezer Scrooge. Look, his famous saying, "Bah humbug." So I've already got my cough drop to soothe my throat. But as time goes on in this video, I might have to have another drink of water. What does it say? What does it say on the bottom here? Anyway, and I thought about sending that mug to Joe Biden. But Joe would look at that and he'd say, "What's this supposed to be? I have nothing in common with Ebenezer Scrooge." And you want to know something? That's pretty close to true. Joe Biden has a few things in common with Ebenezer Scrooge, but ultimately he doesn't have that much in, and I'll tell you why. That's why this episode exists, so I can explain to you why Joe Biden reminds us of Ebenezer Scrooge, but he's not Ebenezer Scrooge. Ebenezer Scrooge is a story of redemption. You could say it's a tragic story, but then again, it doesn't end as a tragedy, does it? I don't know if you've seen the movies or the TV shows or listened to the radio programs of Christmas Carol. And this spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you how it ends. It's about a miserly old man who's lived a productive life. That he's been a hard-working businessman, so he's productive, not lazy, doesn't collect welfare. But he has not lived a full life. He's not lived a well-rounded life. He's not lived a life defined by compassion, sympathy, empathy. But at the end of the story, he is known as someone who keeps Christmas as good as anyone in London. I forget the exact words of the verbatim ending to the story. Something like Ebenezer Scrooge was as good a man as London had ever known, or something like that. And he befriends Tiny Tim. But the point of the story is he's redeemed. He is in the middle of the night, before starting at Christmas Eve, ending in Christmas morning. He's visited by three ghosts, and they show him his past, his present, and his future. And he feels terrible because he has lived a life that, while it's productive financially, it hasn't been productive for humanity, for the rest of society. Meaning, when he leaves this earth, he'll be leaving the world not more enriched. He will not leave. The world will not have been better because he lived here. The world, you could argue, was worse. And he didn't just hurt others. He hurt himself. Ebenezer Scrooge cheated himself out of happiness in his lifetime. But at the end of the story, he finds the true meaning of Christmas, which is to embrace humanity, to embrace joy, to embrace compassion, sympathy, tolerance, devotion, to embrace the better angels of human nature. That's what Ebenezer Scrooge does at the end of the story. So it shows that he has the ability to feel bad, to feel guilty, to realize he was wrong. Ebenezer Scrooge has the capacity to be reformed. He's going to need the help of some ghosts, but they're going to help him become the man that he was always capable of being. He just never became that man. He never became that human, that person. He was he was withdrawn, cold, selfish, greedy, irrationally greedy. You can be greedy. Everyone's greedy, but he was irrationally greedy. Um, and that's also a very common feature for human beings to be, because we're irrational creatures. So he was irrationally greedy. And in the end, he hurt himself more than he hurt anyone. There was a young woman who he was going to get married to, and that never happened. He never had any children. So why do I say that Joe Biden doesn't have a whole lot in common with Ebenezer Scrooge? Well, because Joe Biden, this Christmas season, reminds us of it. He talks like Ebenezer Scrooge. What? You can't afford to fill up your gas tank? Well, then you're just a loser. Maybe you should walk everywhere. Or maybe you should ride the bus or ride a bicycle. Shame on you for complaining about the hyperinflation that you think I caused. A, there's no hyperinflation, and B, I didn't cause it. See, that's how Joe Biden talks. There's no such thing as hyperinflation, and besides, I'm not responsible for it. It's Trump's fault. You see, Joe Biden doesn't have the capacity for introspection, which is what Ebenezer Scrooge had to tap into. Ebenezer Scrooge had a night of self-reflection and introspection. He had to look inward on himself. The left can't do that. Joe Biden has no. Ebenezer Scrooge, was he a terrible parent to his children? No. I would argue that Joe Biden has not been a good husband or a parent. And you can't make that claim about Ebenezer Scrooge. He was never a husband. He was never a parent. So if you were never a husband and parent, you can't say he was bad at those. I think Joe Biden has been he's been a bad leader. He's also been a sponge. Ebenezer Scrooge was not a sponge. You didn't need wealth. He didn't need other people to take care of him. Ebenezer Scrooge, for all his faults, took care of himself. I'm not making him out to be a hero. What I'm saying is Joe Biden did not have any of the possible positive qualities of Ebenezer Scrooge. And he had all the negative qualities. So that's important this holiday season to remember. When you look at to the number one leader of the Western world, used to be from 1991 to about, I don't know, 2015, I don't know, 2020. Now, the leader of the primary, not the primary leader, the most important leader on the planet Earth was the President of the United States. That's not true anymore. And maybe that probably hasn't been true for about 10 years now. But Joe Biden, who you could argue is the second most important leader behind whoever's running the Chinese Communist Party, he's a terrible leader. And he has no leadership qualities. He's a sponge. He's a parasite off of everyone else. And he has no compassion. He has less compassion than Ebenezer Scrooge. Less compassion. He's a crappier parent, crappier father. He's a crappier human being. He's a crappier member of society. He's a crappier neighbor. In every way, Joe Biden is worse than Ebenezer Scrooge. Think about that. And he sits in the Oval Office. He has no compassion for his fellow citizens. He says, I'm tired of you people complaining about rising food prices, rising energy prices, rising housing costs, prices. I'm tired of all you little people, you little insignificant insects who I'm your master. I'm Joe Biden. I am the plantation owner. And that's what Democrats really are the most famous for, being plantation owners and ruling with a hyper cruel fist over slaves. That's what Democrats have always been. They didn't stop being this type of person in 1865 when the Democrats lost the Civil War. They didn't stop. They immediately started putting down Jim Crow laws to make black people second-class citizens. The Democrats have been, for 200 years now, the Democrats have been the incarnation of evil in the United States of America. And people in the media still proclaims them The good people. The people who have redeemed them. The Democrats have redeemed themselves. No, Ebenezer Scrooge redeemed himself. Joe Biden will never, ever experience redemption. He'll never improve himself. Joe Biden, every day of his adult life, has become worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. When he dies someday, he will be at the pinnacle of his evil self. He's a horrible human being. He knows nothing of the spirit of Christmas. He's his emotional satisfaction comes from knowing that he has turned the death of 72 million children into a virtue. It's virtuous that America murders 72 million defenseless innocent children. Recently there was a, well, we're going to get into the abortion issue in a different video because there was a ruling by the Supreme Court, but it doesn't solve the issue. I mean, and even if we reverse Roe versus Wade, just like slavery was a reality in the USA, slavery was a reality. Now there's a reality of at least 72 million children that the USA gleefully murdered. We butchered 72 million children. So if we can't, quote, get past slavery, and I'm not saying we should get past it, I'm saying we should acknowledge the past and try and improve upon it. Try and never make that mistake again. But just as we were acknowledging how terrible slavery was in 1973, we instituted a new evil, which was killing defenseless innocent children, ruining the American family. That is one aspect that helped ruin the American family. So this video is pretty straightforward. As much as I like to say that Joe Biden is Ebidenezer Scrooge, he's worse. He'll never understand the damage he's done. He'll never accept it. He'll never be a good person. He'll never be a leader. He'll never contribute to making the world better, because remember, at the end of A Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge has been transformed into more than just a decent person. He's a generous person, a kind person, someone who has sympathy. I don't like to use the word empathy, but if you want, but in the context of the story, you can say he was an empathetic person. Ebenezer Scrooge transformed from a rotten human being into a good human being. And it's because he had the ability to look inward, to search his own soul, and then once he's examined his own soul, to improve upon it. And Joe Biden and the Democrat Party and the political left, they don't have that ability. They never will. No matter how much Steven Crowder and Jordan Peterson want to lie to themselves and say, well, the people, we've got to love the people on the left because they're God's children, and because because we're all flawed, and they're just flawed in a different way. No, the profound flaws of the left are not equal to the flaws in the center and the right. They're not. It's a different type of flaw. It's a permanent flaw that is an existential threat to all life in the universe. But anyway, that was this December 2021, a little Christmas carol right here on this channel. And it's hopefully you've gotten a little bit of enlightenment from this video, because you understand what decent people are up against, what rational people are up against. And until we accept that people like Joe Biden, like the Democrat Party, and like the left, they're not redeemable. Until we accept that they are not redeemable, we're going to continue to just spiral down into the darkest of all dark ages, the darkest pit of hell. So, Merry Christmas. Thanks for stopping by. Come back and check out my other videos. And if you want to, give them a thumbs up. And if you want to share the videos with your friends, please do that. Take care. Bye-bye.